Welcome to Norfolk, Virginia! This is the 7th largest port in the US, so it is crazy busy between commercial traffic and the military traffic here from the naval base. It is also the start of our 1,100-mile journey down the Atlantic ICW, which we are really excited for.
We have a crucial decision to make because there are two ways to get from Norfolk to North Carolina. The first is the Virginia Cut, which is the more common route, and the second is the Dismal Swamp route. We'll get back to our decision in a second, but first we have our first of our 153 bridges to manage. Gilmerton Highway Bridge. Gilmerton Highway Bridge. This is the sailing vessel Acadia on 1-3.
Acadia, this is Gilmerton. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. We're approaching from the north, the white sailboat. Would you like to request an opening?
Yes, sir. We'll start the process now.
Starting the process now.
Gilmerton Highway Bridge is notoriously hard to get through, but only because of the railroad bridge that's on the other side. So the bridge tenders that run the Gilmerton Highway Bridge are fantastic. They'll do everything they can for you, but we've seen the railroad bridge closed for like longer than an hour before, and all they can do is basically just like apologize. They have no control over the railroad bridge. We happen to time this one pretty near perfectly. The railroad bridge is coming up as I speak, and the bridge that we need to come up for us as well is starting the process. So hopefully we'll basically come around the corner, it'll already be up, and we can just head on through. This number 7 railroad bridge for the 2021 season, and we think that sometime in the winter of 2022 they are closing it for repairs, and we are trying to get through that. We may very well be one of the last boats through today before it closes today, Saturday, and won't reopen again until 11 a.m. on Tuesday. So, pretty excited to get through. Now that we've made it through the bridge, let's get back to our route decision. Here's a quick side-by-side breakdown of both routes. The Virginia Cut, or as it's officially named, the Albemarle and Chesapeake Canal, is 71.7 miles, while the Dismal Swamp route is a little bit longer at 75 miles. The Virginia Cut has one lock that lifts anywhere from 0 to 4 feet. It is maybe the easiest lock we have ever done. And the Dismal Swamp route has 2 locks, both of which are anywhere from 10 to 14 feet depending on tides and water levels in the swamp. They aren't particularly challenging, just bigger. The Virginia Cut has 3 restricted bridges. They do require a bit of timing, and one of the 3 is prone to breakdowns. The Dismal Swamp has 2 restricted bridges that only open 4 times a day and are tied to the lock schedule. The Virginia Cut has a lot of commercial and large recreational traffic, and it can have a lot of wake. The Dismal Swamp is quieter and slower paced, but it's difficult to pass if you get behind someone moving a lot slower. As far as height restrictions go, the Virginia Cut has the PUNGO ferry bridge, which is regularly reported to be less than the charted 65 feet, but the Dismal Swamp has overhanging trees that can cause issues for higher air drafts. Lastly, obstructions. The Virginia Cut is not especially known for issues with deadheads or other obstructions. They do happen, just not commonly. The Dismal Swamp, on the other hand, has a lot of stumps and bottom snags and floating debris, which is a small plant that can get inches deep and clog up water intake filters. We have taken both routes, and we much prefer the Dismal Swamp route, but if you have a deeper draft or prefer to run at 10 to 20 knots, you will probably feel much more at home on the Virginia Cut. Tonight, we will anchor just north of the Deep Creek Lock and lock through the first opening in the morning.
So yesterday we didn't make it in time for the last opening here at Deep Creek, so we anchored just outside the lock, which meant we got to sleep in a little bit this morning, and we are going to catch the 8:30 locking through to the other side. We're going to make a quick stop on the other side of the bridge to get some groceries, and then we are headed for the Dismal Swamp Welcome Center today. The lock opens 4 times a day. It is on a set schedule. Normally, what we would have done is not have anchored here at Deep Creek, but we would have anchored in Norfolk. But because of the bridge closure, we decided just to come all the way through. Otherwise, we would have been in Norfolk until Tuesday. This gave us the opportunity to get through the lock this morning, even though we didn't make the lock yesterday. So we are going to go set up our dock lines, call the lock tender, and get going.
Deep Creek Lock, Deep Creek Lock. This is the southbound sailing vessel Acadia on 1-3.
The lock tender will give you instructions about how to set up your lines. You'll need 2 of your longest dock lines to pass up to the lock tender and plenty of fenders. Turn off your engine once you're secure and wait for the lock to start filling. Up we go! The Deep Creek Bridge is operated by the Deep Creek Lock Tender, so they'll have to drive from the lock to the bridge to open it for you. We're going to make a quick stop on the other side of the bridge to get to one of the easiest provisioning stops on the ICW at the Food Lion and get back underway. The Dismal Swamp Canal was started in the 1790s as an effort to create more agricultural land. They quickly realized that it wasn't feasible as the swamp was significantly deeper than initially thought, so the canal project became a way to move products more easily. It was completed in 1805 and is the oldest continually operational man-made waterway in the U.S. Today, approximately 2,000 recreational boaters pass through the canal annually, and when you compare that to the more than 12,000 that use the Virginia Cut, you can see why we said that this is the quieter route. Since there is very little current in the canal, we are using this opportunity for me to try docking Acadia for the very first time.
All business.
Other than my line handler being a bit out of practice, that was actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. We are so excited to be cruising south with our friends Jen and Elliot and their boat Pivot. Having friends to share this experience makes it so much more fun. While we were here, we celebrated Friendsgiving. Check out the video of it on their channel, Show and Joe. We made it here to the Dismal Swamp Welcome Center today. We did have two small little bumps as we go. One thing about the Dismal Swamp that a lot of people don't like is that there are quite a few logs and deadheads and stuff that can happen. A good rule of thumb is to keep a really nice distance from the boats behind you. And today, Jen and Elliot on Pivot, they were behind us by probably close to 3/4 of a mile to a mile most of the day, which gave them plenty of space for things to settle down behind us so that they weren't hitting anything that we might have been stirring up. We had no one in front of us. We just had a couple of logs that we just kind of bumped. I called them, just let them know, and everything was good. But it is important to go slow through the Dismal Swamp just because if you do hit something, if you hit it slower, you're less likely to do any prop damage or rudder damage or anything like that. It is a no-wake zone as well. It certainly is the slower route to take between here and the Virginia Cut, but it is also absolutely gorgeous. So we think it's worth it. This dock is very busy during peak migration, so expect to have to raft up. It's expected and encouraged. And so if you are traveling with friends, we recommend doing it with them because then you know your neighbors. But there's about, 150 feet of dock here? Yeah, about 150 feet of dock. So there's plenty of space for at least 3 to 4 boats on the inside, and then you can stack out from there.
We're getting ready to leave here, the Dismal Swamp Welcome Center, to head for the South Mills Bridge and corresponding lock. The bridge opening and lock opening is at 11 o'clock, and it's around 10 o'clock right now. And it takes us about an hour at 4 knots to do that distance, which is about 4 miles. You want to time this really carefully because there's not a whole lot of space to spin around and wait at the other end near the lock. So you got to time it pretty carefully.
We had a quick little delay as we were coming down just before the highway bridge here. There are some guys working on a barge cutting some trees to make it easier to get down the canal. So we had to hang out for a little bit, but the lock tender said he would wait for us to get there. So we are gonna wait. We're boogieing along now to get down to the bridge, and hopefully he'll open it for us pretty quickly.
Northern part of the Pasquotank River, it's pretty narrow, so basically the rule of thumb is that you stay in the middle of the channel. Just don't cut the corners too close because the corners are, there's a lot of deadheads, so you just want to stay in the middle of the channel, even around corners and all of that. But as you get towards the southern end and you get closer to Elizabeth City, the river widens out, so then there are markers, and you're much better off. You just stay in the middle of the channel. You still want to be on the lookout for floating logs and that kind of thing, especially if there has recently been any sort of wind. But it definitely, once it starts widening out, you'll have channel markers to follow.
There are many free docking options in Elizabeth City. This time, we're planning to use the park bulkhead, but there are several other options. Elizabeth City is the self-proclaimed harbor of hospitality, and they take it really seriously. Their harbor hosts will often stop by, offer you rides, fresh veggies, and even roses. We're going to head in to town for some dinner and drinks, and we will see you all next time when we cross the Albemarle Sound.
This is like a lounge activity. Yes, you. Bring your Diet Coke with you. Line handling is serious business, Andrew. Line handling, it's serious business.